Okay, mic check. All right, I am audible now. Good day, greetings everybody, and welcome to our live session on SAP Get Certified Build Developer. Now, if you've been with us from the beginning, well done for making it this far. You made it to session 5 out of 6. And as always, I am David. My name is David, and I am your trainer and guide for this series. I am SAP Build certified as well as ABAP Cloud certified and Integration Suite development. So I do specialize in application development and programming. And so far in our journey, we have introduced the structure of the certification in terms of what we can expect out of a practical certification. We then looked at the business technology platform and then apologies about that, guys. Just having some technical difficulties, but I'm back with you. I'm not too sure where I broke off because, yeah, things just crashed. My Zoom crashed. If someone can just remind me where they remember me speaking from. I'm aware I don't have my camera on at the moment. It's part of the. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Um, please confirm that they sound. Let's show. Am I audible? Yes, sound okay now. All right. All right, thank you. Please just remind me where you guys remember me picking up from because Zoom crashed and I wasn't sure if I was still in the introduction. It's been a hectic day. So I think it's just showcasing. I have a go live tonight that I've been preparing for the whole day. It should go well, but yeah, but you have my full attention. I'm not too sure where you guys lost me in terms of where I was in the introduction, but essentially, I'm just going to pick up from the beginning, where today's session, we do want to be focusing on the end-to-end experience. This is preparing us to take on the SAP Build Developer certification where they have updated just to say from the 30th to May 11th, scheduling slots will be unavailable. So until May 11th. So once again, the recommendation is that you, if you are in this series, this is preparing you for the current certification. So I do recommend that you write the certification before April 29th. So, but ideally, realistically, after this session today, where we go through the learning journey, you will have all of the skills, the technical abilities to be able to take on the certification itself. The only thing that will not be the same is things like data, field names, and so on. But otherwise, by the end of the session, you have the necessary skills to take on this certification. Based on what we're doing today and what's still remaining, what we've covered, the BTP stuff, build app stuff, process automation stuff. Today, I only want to do the end-to-end experience such that on Thursday, our final session, we do build work zone and we do Juice Studio. Both of these are not required in terms of Juice Studio and build work zone. These are not tested in the certification. So that's why I'm leaving them for the Thursday session. But after today's session, when we do the end-to-end experience, which I've created a guide, I will be sharing the guide for the exercise, and there's the link to today's learning journey. And all of this is just some initial theory, which will end us here on the creating end-to-end scenario, where we'll be creating a process. Remember, as I mentioned, the certification is 70% process automation, 30% build apps. So today's focus will be on process automation in terms of what to expect in the certification. And yeah. And I will be sharing the guide. I know one of the asks that I had was that you have attempted this end-to-end scenario yourself, or if you haven't, after this session, before you write, do attempt to create a process like the end-to-end scenario so that you have that muscle memory inside. So building up to that end-to-end scenario is just reminding us. It is just reminding us of what we can expect or what the build product does for us in terms of automating our processes, creating a business site with WorkZone, using the ProCode apps, building with build apps, and just being able to bring all of that together such that multiple people can work on the platform together. So that is what this first lesson is just highlighting, and that process automation and the build tool has multiple use cases such as automating invoices, supporting employee relocation, sales order management. All of this is what using the build triggers and forms put together can allow us to achieve some use cases. And the last bit is just highlighting the various products, build apps, process automation, and WorkZone. The last bit is then have foreshadowing the final exercise that we are going to be doing. Where in the final exercise, the process is created that starts with an API trigger and leads to an auto approval or manual approval based on specific conditions, which is exactly what is going to be happening in your certification, where you start your process not via an API trigger, but via a form trigger, and it leads to an auto approval or a manual approval based on a simple condition. That is the long and short of it. The process then can be triggered in build apps, which you add a component to trigger this process. So that is what we'll be creating in the end-to-end experience. The next lesson is just reminding us of how BTP and build apps will be and how they are connected in terms of BTP and build apps. I see there's a question. Will there be questions from build workzone in the exam? No, there won't be. I think I have tried to make that extremely clear that for the exam, it's only process automation and build apps. There's no dual code. There's no work zone as well. It's just process automation and build apps. All right. But in the new version, which the new version is the one that we were discussing to say you should take certification before the new version, because I also don't know what's going to be in this new version. In this new version, because build apps won't be prevalent, they might replace it with specific process automation activities or who knows what at this stage. But we will await and see that at least. But you won't need to await and see if you write this and pass it before this change occurs. Yeah. So so the BTP platform just allows us then to once again deploy our applications. Let you deploy the app to run on BTP, and the authentication. You would log into the build lobby based on your authentication via the BTP cockpit as well, and the destinations that allow you to connect and work with all of your data as well becomes available. Then the bottom bit is just highlighting that in build apps, you can map some system variables. This is not important even for your certification. So this is just a feature in build apps that if you want to get a system variable like the current date and time, the current username and password, build apps allow that. In terms of the destinations within the BTP cockpit, once again, as a reminder, your certification, you will not be required to do any BTP configuration, such as adding destinations. This is all stuff that is nice to know for real world scenarios, but for your certification, you don't need to know how to add a destination. But for real world scenarios, it is very good to know and what the destinations do and how they are used. Okay, then implementing the end-to-end scenario is just reminding us what we spoke of last week in terms of process automation in a nutshell, where you can create processes and workflows, you can add forms and approval steps, you can automate with bots. My inbox allows you to get a view of the tasks that you need to approve or reject. The business rules allow you to determine the routing of your process. Can make use of pre-built content from the marketplace and have the use case of understanding documents and PDFs, as well as having a visibility of your process as well. In a nutshell, process automation allows you to perform a number of tasks. Now, being able to trigger your process, specifically an API trigger process in build apps, would require you to select API trigger, which initiates the process through an API call from an external system, like external system such as build apps. For your certification, you will be creating a trigger from form trigger. So this brings up one out of the two things that I want to highlight are important in terms of areas that are confusing to people, because your certification will ask you to create a form trigger. And towards the end of the steps in your tasks, you will then be required to call the process in build apps. naturally, especially because of the naming convention, you would think you need to call your form trigger, which will not be possible because a form trigger, once it's deployed, is deployed as a URL. It's a link that you use. So in that form, in that process that they ask you to trigger, there will be a bracket with the name of the process. So you just copy that name, and that's the name that you will search for in Build Apps. It won't be your created process, but it will be a process that is relevant to the context of the activities. So just don't get confused there. When they ask you to call a process, just put the process name that they give you. And the way they put it is in a way that it's a bit confusing and misleading. So that's why I'm just steering you towards the right direction. So that's one of the two things. The other thing, in terms of the notification, I'll speak on it as we get there. All right. So I hope this makes sense in terms of the triggers. Last week, we created a form trigger. When we start the end-to-end experience, I will just open up the difference because today we want to create an API trigger. All right. But in essence, it's just showing the steps. When you are using an API trigger, what it will do is that you would need to make sure that you have variables that you pass to this API trigger. These are the variables that you would use to store the data that the user inputs. That's the purpose of variables. From there, you want to deploy and publish your process to the library. This step will not be required because it's a nice to know how it's done. But in our case, for our certification, we won't be required to, we will be required to deploy, but just not to publish our process. Publish the process to the library would mean that if you select this publish to library would mean that our build apps environment can see our process. In our case, because it's a form trigger, publishing to library will not make it available to build apps because it's a form trigger. So don't worry about publishing to library. This step would be already done for you for the process that they want you to add. All right. So yeah, but essentially these are the steps to publish and make it available to library. That's fine. Build apps in a nutshell, just reminding us of the glory of build apps before it becomes a non-standalone application. It was a drag and drop tool where you could create a user interface and application as well that works with various backend data systems and multi-channel support in terms of being a web application versus being a mobile application as well. So in this area, it does show the SAP build library, which my end-to-end scenario doc, I will share this as well. Let me just open it up so that I can open it and then I'll share it. Just highlights how to get there because it's quite simple navigation. It's literally on integrations SAP build library. So if I open this is a doc I'll be sharing with you shortly. It's just showing what the final process will look like. Even in your certification, the structure of your process. So this is a very useful guide, is that the structure of your certification, of your process will be like this. It will have a condition that will have to fit the conditions, and it will have an auto approval, and it will have a couple of forms. This send email won't be there. This was just me just adding stuff. But overall, the structure, you see the structure, because at some point in your certification, you're going to wonder, does my process structure look correct or is it correct? As long as if it has a condition, starts with a condition and branches off in terms of the if and default, and within the one of them, there's a manager approval reject, and there's an auto approval, you are fine. You are done. But yeah, as I carry on in this, I showcase in terms of API trigger versus form trigger, how to add variables. And I came here to showcase what the step that you would be required to do is in this here, integrations, go to library. Within library, you will then be searching for your process in the search bar, and that's the one that you would add to your trigger process button, which then becomes available in your trigger process. And this basic structure as well is the same structure for your button for your certification. A trigger process, and then a success and error node. That's it. All right. So it really is. I don't want to say that simple, but yeah, once you understand, then you realize, oh, it really was that simple. Good lobby for practice again. All right. Yes, yes, yes. I will share that because I think I even want to use that environment instead of the BTP cockpit, just because it's a more relevant environment. The BTP cockpit does work, but the APP is already configured. But someone is just asking for that environment. Add tab to new. Trying to add up to new group. We're trying to duplicate tab and showcase how to get there, hands-on practice. And I just search for build, which will take me to this APP system. And like I said, because I've already subscribed, but I actually want to share this link. And access, which would just take me directly to my lobby. All right, so I was just, while everyone is here, let me share that experiencing end-to-end guide just so you have it early on so that you have it already, so that you don't have to wait until the very end to get it. End-to-end experience guide. It's open. I need to close it first. And then I can paste it. Okay. And then after we've built our Mata, I will share that created Mata file. We just need to create it first. All right. All right, that's sent. And what did I want to do next? Yeah, so this is just highlighting the build section. The work zone part, we'll look at it on Thursday, where this one is just highlighting that work zone is the area where we'll deploy our build apps application. It's our hub where we can communicate and see data relevant to our department. If we are in finance, if we are in sales, you would be able to see finance or sales related data based on your workspace and that you are within. Overall, it's just allowing you to customize, make sure that you have specific applications and data that is required for your role. And business cards is a way to then dynamically show data to display this business content. Like I mentioned, this will be in a bit more detail in Thursday's session where we do look at work zone in a bit more detail. All right. That then actually leads us to our end-to-end experience, where previously, when this was a multiple choice exam, this exercise was a prerequisite exercise. So you had to show the proctor back then when we had proctors that you have completed a task, which would have been this task. And this was SAP and this was one of the few certifications that had a prerequisite exercise. So SAP was kind of foretelling that some stage they do want to get into a practical sense of certifications because they were realizing that with these multiple choice certifications, people were not getting practical exposure. So this was a prerequisite exercise, but this exercise is still very much relevant to certification as well, albeit the things that are not the same is the data, the fields that you input, but the skill that you need and the thinking behind it is all the same. And in this scenario, the manager wants an overview of the learning process of their employees regarding the SAP build products before they are eligible for certification. To achieve this, an app, a process, and a site will be created and connected without using any code. And the goal of this exercise is to create a process with 2 flows and publish it to the library for build apps to trigger. Key variables will include email, system name. Also, they include the selection of the 3 products and build work zone. If all 3 products are selected, auto approval occurs. So that's our condition. If any product is not selected, the request goes to a manager for approval, checked in my inbox. Okay, and these are just the logs that would occur once your process is running, and this is one of the logs that you would showcase to your proctor when when you had to showcase it to your proctor. You don't anymore because there's no proctor. Just to show that you did do this and you got a running step. Anyway, the first steps is get access to your environment. So the certification makes this easy. Once you click start, it will give you access to the lobby, much like this APP 400 system, where you can start creating your projects. No, you don't. So yeah, so I don't want to get that confusion in mind. We need to do this exercise before attempting the certification? You don't need to do this exercise. It is just beneficial. It is just beneficial for you. It's not mandatory. You don't need to do it. We are doing it right now together. If you do it yourself afterwards, that's even better, because once you know how to create what we're about to create, you will be more than fine to create what you have to create in the certification. All right, got it. Because much like in the certification, once you've gotten access to the system like this, the first step is they'll ask you, for example, I'm not saying this will be the first step, but this is the way they'll ask you to do things. They won't tell you how to do it. They'll just tell you what you need to add, and you would know where to go to add those things. For example, create the registration process in process automation. An employee has completed build apps, work zone, and must initiate it. Input variables. Then it tells you the input variables that need to be created. And you need to know where input variables will be. In our case, for the certification, we won't need to create input variables because we are going to be creating a form trigger. A form trigger, as soon as you add inputs into a form, those become variables. So you don't need to worry about explicitly creating input variables. And those are the ones that you would map to your forms. So that was step one, create input variables. This conditional check. If the employee confirms all three products, the process proceeds to auto approval. Otherwise, yes, a notification will then be sent to the learner. So this is this is the second out of the two things I wanted to mention was important. Number one was that whole process in build apps to say, just search for the process they give you. And number two is this. A notification will then be sent to the learner. This is vague because what type of notification needs to be sent? Are they referring to an email? Are they referring to an actual notification? What they're referring to is a form. And at least in this version, in this note, they tell you notifications can be checked in SAP Build My Inbox. This is a hint. The certification won't give you that hint, but this checked in my inbox is the indication that you have to use a form as the notification, because a form does count as a notification. Because to show you the confusion that I'm referring to, could you go and create a process and show you when you are required to add another artifact. There is one code notification, and it's so tempting to go select that one. But realistically, they are asking you to add a form notification so that they can be checked in my inbox. Okay, process automation, just better moment to load. It's take a while from what I've seen earlier today. Okay, so faster now. So this is the lobby. And I want to share this one with you guys. Yeah, let me open this one. But at the end of the day, I'm also going to want to create a new one. So this is the end-to-end experience. V2. And this is the one that's already open. Okay, thank you. Almost open. So yeah, and this editable version. I'll share this multi-file to you shortly because this is the one that uses a form trigger versus an API trigger. Our certification uses form trigger. Today, for the end-to-end experience, we're going to use an API trigger. The only reason I'm doing that is because we've already done the form trigger, which is literally the same process. In terms of what the structure, there's a condition, it goes to approval. The only thing is that now we're using an API trigger. This is just to reinforce the skills required for the certification. This is an empty one. So yeah, I came here to showcase that notification thing because that's what led me here. If I click on add step, you see there's this thing that says notification. it's tempting to want to use this, but you need to use a normal form as a notification, which goes to my inbox. So that's the only thing I'm highlighting. If you try and use this, you will get errors. Things won't necessarily work because the environment isn't configured to use a notification for a number of reasons. Even the email one is not a sufficient notification. It has to be a form one. So this is just an area where notification confuses us. I went too far back in terms of why some people, struggle and stuff like that. All right, so a notification will be sent to the learner. If one or more products have not been completed, this routes to management approval. Here, the manager can decide to approve or reject, and notifications will be sent to the learner for both approval and rejection. This is just highlighting that you would in here have a form that says after they approve, approved form, rejected form. It's just like that. And once this is completed, then publish and then deploy your process. Then you would go to build apps and trigger your process. So yeah, let's go ahead and follow these steps. I'm quite familiar with steps, so I don't necessarily need to read them through, but I will be creating it as per these requirements. So in our brand new experience, the first thing we are met with is an empty process where the name will be specific to the name they give you. Make sure you just create it or name it as they tell you to name it. End-to-end experience is what I'll call mine. Version 2, create. Process created, but first step in the certification is to create an environment because the environment is the one that you would choose to deploy to. So in here, I've already created this and I just went to control tower environments and I chose create and then I gave it my name, the name that they give you. And that environment is the one that you would choose when you deploy your process. After that, then you come and start actually designing your process as per required. Okay. Yeah, so the step, add a trigger. Last week we chose form trigger. Today we're going to use API trigger. End-to-end trigger, I'm going to call mine. End-to-end trigger. Compared to the form trigger, this one, this is the editable version. I'm going to go to the deployed version. The one difference to highlight between form trigger and API trigger is that API trigger allows both to call it form trigger once deployed, because this is the stuff that you would need to do. Once it's deployed to actually test, just remember to, once it loads, to click on that form, then it will show you. So click on this trigger, and then on the right here, it will show you get the link. So just click on it, link copied, and then this will take you to your form. In our case, for this API trigger, we need to build the UI ourselves in build apps. But yeah, realistically, then you can start to fill out all of this stuff, submit, and so on and so forth. In our case, today we chose API trigger. Then, based on these conditions, they tell us add some input variables so that it can follow this conditional check. Remember, this is for a candidate who needs to decide whether or not they are ready to take the certification based on the inputs that they put in. So to do this accurately, we then need to control events and add a condition, which then creates the if or default branch. After that, we then need to go to open condition editor. And in here, we then need to select the conditions. In our case, there's nothing to select from. We haven't created the variables, right? So to create variables, this is where you go to this chevron button over here at the far right, select variables, and then select input variables, add input, and then they told us to add 3 things. So much like certification, whatever they tell you to add, it won't be variables. It will be stuff for your forms, the component for your forms. They'll tell you, make sure, the naming is the same, the type is the same, the order is the same as well. So in our case, we want to add SAP build process automation. SAP build work zone, and SAP build apps. Boolean just means it's true or false. It's a tick box. I'm fine with just those three. I saw there were other two strings, but I'm not gonna. Those are not important. These are the important ones. Apply, and now when I go into my condition editor, you see process inputs are there. Now I can actually decide on what conditions. And remember the conditions on if build apps is true. Based on if all of these are true, add another group. And if process automation and build work zone is true, then this satisfies the if branch. Then if all of these are true, not any one of them, but all of them are true, only then will it go into the if branch. And that exclamation goes away. And if all of them are true, it tells us what should happen. It needs to auto approve. If the employee confirms all three products, the process needs to auto approve for the certification registration. A notification will then be sent. So that just means this. It means we've met our conditions and it's to auto approve. So meaning we're going to create a form to auto approve. And that creates our auto approval branch. The other default one is then a manager needs to intervene. A manager needs to intervene, meaning we need to create an approval branch. And in this approval branch, we'll call this manager's approval. Create. And this then creates our basic and final structure. The only thing that we'll need to do is add a form for when the manager approves, add a form for when a manager rejects, and naturally, what will the manager see when they are approving or rejecting, which will be what will be in the open editor section. I trust you guys are following or making sense. If there's any confusion, let me know. So this is for the API trigger. What about if it's a form trigger, like what our process will be, our sort will be? Because in the form trigger, you never had to worry about creating input variables because yes, they are there, but that's because in this form trigger, you first had to go open editor and whatever you put in here in this trigger form, whatever you put in the trigger form then becomes your variable in terms of if it's this is the deployed version. That's why on my left-hand side, I'm not able to add stuff. If you add an input field, that would be a process input. Anything that's inputable then becomes an input field. And that's important because can you form creations? Yes, I'll do so shortly. I'm just still doing a comparison between what we've done, API trigger and form trigger. So there is a slight difference because the only difference is that now, because the first step we did was add the necessary inputs into our form. In our condition editor, open conditional editor, you see there is stuff. Let me go into the editable mode just so you can see the difference nicely. Come on now. Because I just want you to see the difference between how the trigger then becomes your input, because whatever you put in your form trigger is literally stored as an input. So in here, in my conditional editor, I select this. You see how this reads employee onboard form trigger, meaning whatever was inputted there compared to the other one, which reads as our variables, right? So it's making sense how this reads as process inputs. And that's because we created those under the process input side for this API trigger versus our form trigger, which automatically picks up our employee onboard trigger. So yeah, it's quite intuitive. This is not something that is meant to confuse you. It's just, it's intuitive. It makes sense in the sense of how it's explained, how the input is stored based on the trigger. All right. So yeah, let's carry on building our process. Because yes, the next step is to add forms. And we just added one form, the auto approval form. Now we need to add form for when the manager approves. So can you show the form creation? So this is the next form that I want to add. Add a blank form, call it approved. It will also bring an exclamation mark. That's because we haven't added all of the remaining stuff. And call this rejected. Create. Okay, now in my design console, there's a bunch of errors, which is just that the forms which I added are missing some key mandatory fields. So we'll start on the auto approval for the if condition. The employee has selected that they do understand build apps, they do understand process automation and work zone, meaning the if condition is fulfilled and they can just get auto approved. So in here, I'll click on it. It brings up this information on the right-hand side, which will be the subject. The subject is what you see in my inbox. I want to see auto approved. And the user, all right, yeah. Here I do want to specify, I'm in my trial account. For your certification, do use process metadata started by. That's the long and short of it. For your recipient, use process metadata started by. In my case, right now, I'm going to type out my email just because I'm in my trial account. But for your certification, do use process automation started by. Because it picks up your user nicely. And in terms of that it does pick up your email and stuff like that by using the process metadata started by. So you see that exclamation mark has disappeared just by removing or by adding a subject. Please approve or reject. This is the subject. And the recipient, once again, you're going to select process started by. In my case, I'm going to put my email. So don't make the mistake of selecting instance ID or even typing your email. Just put process metadata started by. I think my end-to-end guide, I do showcase that and I do highlight that as well. Yeah, so those are the basic fields. The rest of it is literally becomes a bit repetitive, but that's the nature of the certification. Like, I'm really not joking when I say it is quite simple. Is once you know what to do, at least it always feels like that with anything. Approved and user process started by and rejected and process started by. I want to add my email. I'll keep this one like this, just to showcase that for some reason the trial account is a bit funny, but yeah. For your search, you do use process started by. All right. Now there's no errors, but as you've guessed, we're not done yet because our forms don't have data to showcase what has been auto approved. What does the manager need to approve, reject? So this is where we'll click on the three dots, say open editor. And there's a couple of things that you should not forget to do when you're doing this. How will be the recipient of the manager's approval form? Yes, it's a fair question. It is going to be the process started by because, and I get your question because, are we also the manager? Is there another external manager? No. In this case, you are the recipient, you are the manager, you are the everything in this scenario. Otherwise, in a real world scenario, you would then put, an actual manager. It won't be yourself. But for the certification, you are everything. You are the manager, you are the recipient. So process started by, process started by you. Okay, cool. Got it. Thanks. Yeah. All right. Yes. So this brings on the next step where in each form that you add, it becomes, especially for the test, it becomes repetitive because there's about 6 or 7 things that you need to add. You need to add a heading, you need to add an input field, but they tell you all of these things. You don't guess them. Just make sure you do add them. Okay, so in this case, what is this? Auto approval. auto approved, and I just want my auto approved to show whatever I would have selected to showcase that these do need to be auto approved. So this is SAP Build Process Automation, and the other one will be Build Apps, SAP Build Apps. Um, and this would be SAP Build Workzone. Okay. Yeah, that's all I want to see. For my auto approval, as you guessed, the same thing needs to happen for the managed approval. Even for the rejected and approved one, add of the fields. In my case, for the sake of time, the approved and rejected ones, I won't necessarily add all of the fields. This is just a trial run, but as long as the principle is there. So in here, open editor once again. And there's another thing that you should not forget, which I think you kind of get after you've added the input. So please approve or reject. And this is what the manager will see, and the manager needs to see whatever we would have selected. VPN. Sorry. SAP Build Process Automation. And SAP Build Apps. So the user's just selecting whether or not they are comfortable in this, and the manager will see, oh, they only selected Build Process Automation. What about Workzone and Build Apps? Let me then reject. This is what the manager will be thinking, or the manager will see, oh, they selected Process Automation and Build Apps. Well, let me accept because Workzone isn't so much important for the certification. I'm just, making a scenario as to what the manager would be thinking. Realistically, because it's the manager, you can make these read-only such that the manager can't make changes. And I don't remember if this is a step that they ask you to do, but if they don't ask you to make anything read-only, don't make it read-only. Just because I don't want to do stuff that they don't ask you to do. But realistically speaking, for the managers, they would need to be read-only so that they don't accidentally change things or they don't change things in overall. So if they don't ask you to make it anything read-only, don't make it read-only. In my case, I will, because this is a trial run, and in the real world scenario, you would most likely make these read-only. All right. So yeah. The next thing is, I'm hoping at least, I do want to at least pose a question at least one, but what would you guys say is the next step in terms of what we've just done? We've added inputs. What would you think is the next important step in terms of the inputs that we've just added? I'm open to any suggestions and answers. There's no right or wrong answer, but I would just like to mail. Okay. Not yet. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I get where the thinking is coming from, but the answer that I'm looking for is that we added inputs like we just did. So this is something that you should not forget to do, especially because at least the design console will also tell you. So there's warnings. We recommend that you map a value for build, process automation, and Workzone. So this is what you should not forget to do for all of your forms. So even auto approval, we added stuff, but that stuff won't be displayed until we go to inputs. And in here, inputs, these are empty. So you do need to map. So that's the answer I was looking for. So you guys are not wrong in saying that a notification, but the answer I was more looking for is that we need to map whatever inputs that we've added. The reason why we map it is because if we don't map it, we're going to run and deploy this, go to my inbox and see that they're all empty. And you might wonder why. And the reason would be because have we mapped our values? So for example, these are yellow. So the manager needs to know what was auto approved or what needs to be approved. And the only way they can know is if you go to inputs and go to build apps process automation, and work zone. So in the end-to-end guide, I do highlight that as an important step. Let me just open it again to say, do remember to map your inputs. Yeah, 1.4. Within the forms, ensure to map the inputs. And that is an inputs like we just went, and add the process started by. Okay, so yeah, it's an inputs where in the inputs you will map to the form trigger, because that will be the only option available. So as we are seeing here, or because we're using the API trigger, it won't read form trigger, it will read the variable that we created. But for the form, I think this is what I showcased in here, inputs, this is mapped to the form trigger. Makes sense. All right. So in terms of answers that you guys give in terms of the next step would be the email step, I just want to clarify something in there because this is important. This form is technically the email. So this form, it's purple, is already an email because I say email in quotes. All right, I'll send it again. I say email in quotes because this is my inbox notification. So let's see, because I ran something, ran that other one. Let's see if it actually did come here. Because I don't remember when I created it to put my email address or not, but I just want to go to my inbox just to showcase that that is the notification already. So there's no need to go and want to add a specific, okay, there's no items for this one that I deployed earlier. Can I put it again? Let me refresh. Because I don't remember if I added, let me just select one. Maybe from my other ones I added. I added, but otherwise we will see it by the end. Okay, no, we'll test it with this one that we're creating. But essentially, what I'm highlighting is that these are the notifications themselves. This auto approval is a notification that goes to my inbox. This is an initial notification that goes to the manager, and after they have approved, that's the notification that they will get. And what will be inside this? Well, it would be whatever was approved for the case of time. So realistically speaking, you need to add all the components that you've been adding into your forms in your certification. For me, for the case of time, I'll just add a heading and just call it approved. Okay. Same thing for rejected, but in the real world, you're going to add all of your, or in the certification, you add all of your components. In here again, go to the rejected one, and I will just add a heading called rejected. And if you need to add the inputs as well, make sure to add the inputs for all of the forms. Rejected, go to edit form. And I'll just put a big heading here that says rejected. Save. Okay. This in mind, this is literally, if I go back to tasks, everything that was required. And this is the same structure that will be required for your certification. Albeit the conditions won't be check if something is true or false. It'll be quite specific. I think you need to check something based on the number of days. So if that field is less than 2, which that conditional check allows you, because it's not just is true, it can be sorry, I added an extra bunch by accident. I meant to open the editor. I'm just highlighting that this can be is equal to, is less than, is not equal to. So for the search, it will be quite specific, but don't worry, it's just literally reading to understand. And that's what the test actually tests as well. It's how well we can follow instructions. And even when those instructions can be a bit confusing or deceiving, but yeah. Otherwise, the skill, you would have the skill. You would know how to add a condition editor, where to check. All right. Let me save. And yeah, overall, this is how your final process will look like in your cert, where there's a conditional branch, if condition to auto approve, a manager to approve or reject. You are done. All I want to do now is make sure there's no errors. which there isn't, and release and deploy. And then all we want to go do now is make this be available in dApps. So release, and after you release, you want to make sure it's deployed. So this is now released, and to get to deploy, you need to click on this show project version. You see right now it still says release. Up until I click the show project version, then it shows deploy. Then I want to do is deploy. And remember that environment in the first step, this is where you select it. So in my case, I'm just going to stick to public. In yours, make sure you stick to your selected environment. Don't select anyone else's. Make sure you select your specific environment that you would have created. Okay, deploy. And because this is an API trigger, it won't create that link like we saw in that other in the form trigger, as you are familiar with, where when you click there, it will create a link. It will just show as deployed, and there's a trigger. And yeah, because deployed, we now need to create the user interface that will actually call the process. So that's what we want to go and do in build apps. Go to the lobby, create application, process, front end application, web and mobile application. I hope I didn't go through that too fast, because this is stuff that is really straightforward, but I can get why I would want to slow down, just in case when I'm not here, you might be like, okay, do I select full stack? Do I select front end? Especially if it's the first time doing it. If you've played around in this environment enough, you would know that you need to select front end, and web and mobile application is a build apps application. And all I'm doing here is creating end to end build apps application. Review, create. Are we required to pass a verification when attempting the certification? Like show our ID room where we attempt? All that is not required, which is, quite crazy to me. I think it will change over time, because then how do they verify that it's actually you taking the exam? But yeah, at this current stage, there isn't a verification step that I've been going through. There isn't even a proctor. So yeah. All right. We're in our build apps application, where we want to just add the fields, which will be our user interface. For the certification, they just ask you to add one input field and one button, literally just like this. And then they'll change this to whatever label you would need to put. And the button would need to be to start process. This is literally your whole certification build apps, these two things. And then in the start process, in the add logic, that's where you would go and scroll down on the left-hand side and select trigger process, connect it to the connection tab. And as you can see here, you have not integrated any process. So this is what you will see as well. That's because we haven't made our process available. And what the certification will ask you to do as well is to say, once you've triggered your process and you've actually enabled it, you need to just add a toast. It will be specifically a toast. And that toast would be for success. The top node is always success, and the bottom node is if there's any errors. And in the toast, you just want to add a value that says success, and this one that says failed or error. Okay, and that's your whole thing. Obviously, you just need to add that, but we'll get there shortly. That's for your start process. In our case, it's not an input field. It's going to be 3 checkbox fields. 1, 2, 3. This is to match our SAP build apps checkboxes. Remember, the user is specifying if they are ready for SAP build work zone, for example, or build process automation, SAP build process automation. Okay. Naturally, with you adding that input field, so I'm just going to bring back this input field and call it name. Whatever gets typed in here needs to be saved in a variable. So the test will tell you create a variable, a page variable, which will hold whatever you typed in your input field. So we go to variables, create page variable, add new page variable from scratch, and give it a name, a fitting name. For example, for the input field for the name, it would be name type text. They even tell you what type it should be, type text, and that's fine. In our case, we need to create type Boolean, type true and false to hold. I'm just going to summarize this: SAP process automation, PA, process automation, SAP build apps, BA, and SAP work zone, WZ. Is it frozen? Underscore PA, underscore SAP work zone. Okay. This should read build apps. And this should not be typed text, otherwise it won't be compatible with those components. This should read true or false, and true and false. Save. All right. That is important because now in this value field, you then need to map it in the value such that the value gets stored to an actual variable, map it to your data variable that you just created, page variable, and map it to the ones that are available. Because this is an input field, you see the three others are unavailable because they're incompatible. This is a text input field. You can't map a Boolean single yes or no field. So that's why the only one that's compatible and available is the name field. The process automation ones will map the value to the actual relating BA, build apps, save, work zone, value, save to work zone, save to process automation. Okay, so now at least whatever we select, whatever we type gets saved into a variable. Why is that important? So that when we call our process, we tell the process what data it needs to use, because that's the one of the things it's going to ask for. So what I mean by that is, let's actually add our process, the one that we deployed version, and we're just going to go through the steps as if incorrect steps first, which is going to integrations. It's actually the correct place, but I haven't published it to libraries. What I'm trying to show is add integration, build library, processes. This is not processed. So we need to add it. So to add it, we just go to the lobby, find our process, V2, click on the arrow there, click on versions, the deployed version, select publish to library. Here you're very robotic. Okay, do I sound better now? Not sure why. Robotic is in monotone, or I'm glitching in terms of network. Hopefully I sound clear now. Maybe it was just my network. All right, sounds clear to me. Maybe your network on your side actually was just cutting there, but yeah, apologies about that. But yeah, I'm just highlighting that to make that process available, I had to publish it to library. Just to remind you on this step, for your certification, because you created a form trigger, you will not be required to publish anything to library. A form trigger is not an API trigger. So what that means is that you won't need to publish your process to library like I just did, because the process that you're even looking for is not the one that you created. There will be a name of the process that when we go back to ODAP and we search in here, you're going to enter the name that they tell you to search for. And it won't be the process that you created. It will be a specific name and it will be available. You make that available. In our case, because you just published it library, we now see our process over here. Yeah. Right, and we see that it expects these input fields because that is what was in the input variables. Click on enable process. That's one of the steps that you need to do. Enable process. Now, when I go back to my start process button, previously this was empty. Now, this can actually allow me to select stuff. where I can now select my end-to-end V2 process. The very next thing it's going to ask you to do is tell it what inputs it requires. And you're going to keep it object with properties. You don't need to change it to data variables or mapping. Keep it as is. Even for your certification, keep it as object properties, such that when you click on custom object, the input of that process is just waiting for you to tell it what you need to map it to. So the input for the process is expecting grabs, work zone, and process automation. All we need to do is pass the data that we stored in our variable to the process. So in build apps, select that, and then we select date variable. And the first one was what? I didn't actually read there. Build apps. So I need to map build apps to my variable that I know will hold my selection of build apps. The next one is work zone, same thing, data variable, work zone. Then process automation, data variable, process automation, save. So what this just did is whatever we input here that we set as value then gets sent into our process. All right. With that, you are done. And save. And we're actually not using this input one. So I'm gonna just remove it. I was just using that input one as an example of what the sort will be, because the sort doesn't require you to use checkbox field. It's just one input field. All right, with that being done, as you can see, I've added my process, added the actual process, mapped the custom object to the variables. If it's a success, it will tell me success. If it fails with an error, it will tell me error. Let's preview. And what I'm expecting now is things to start going to my inbox. So open web preview, where we do want to test the two scenarios, one for auto approval and one for manager intervening. So the auto approval condition is if all of these are selected, then yeah, the user can auto approve. Success. Perfect. So with that success, you are done for your certification. Once you see a success, you don't even need to go to my inbox. In our case, we just, because that's the final step in the tasks. It says once you see success, you are done. In our case, once we see success, we want to go to my inbox. Where's the refresh button? And it just timed out. Authorization issue. I think it timed out. Where's my build, my BTP cockpit that I've been using to access this one? Okay. And in here, I just want to see my process. So I'll start it again. Start process. Success. And now I can go to my inbox. Why is it not appearing immediately? All right, I will just confirm this by going to my lobby and going to monitoring, just to confirm that that end-to-end one did run. I must just check that I put my email correctly in that manager, in that auto approval. Yeah, but it is running. And as you can see there, end-to-end V2, this is the one that we just ran. Let's see if it sends our data. So auto-approved branch did reach. And the context includes our 3 input fields. That's fine. So, and there was no errors as well. So all I want to check now is why, yeah, this is my email as the recipient. Why, for whatever reason, it did not pop up. My inbox is bugged. I know it can be bugged at times, but if you change my inbox filters, the approval should appear. My inbox filters, I don't have currently any full. Okay. Which other filters are there? Due on, select all. Okay. But I know what you mean. It can be very much bugged, but it should have just created on as well. Yeah, today, just put all. And task type, okay, there's no specific task. Status of added, due on all. Okay, then I'll refresh and refresh in here. Usually it's just a simple refresh. That does do it. Because I know last week we were able to actually see it come through. Let's just test the other scenario. So the one that goes to manager. So I'm only comfortable in process automation, I would say. Uh, uh, oh, okay. So you got an issue where the inbox keeps loading forever and you got a 403. Changing the filter seemed to fix it. Okay. I'm currently not getting a 303. I'm just not getting anything. Let me close this one and open. Oh, which my inbox is this? This is the APP 400. Well, that would be not the one that I'm wanting to be in. I'm looking for this one. So issue with having multiple environments open. Okay. Now it is thinking for long, but it's thinking for a bit too long. If you ask me, this is where I think the bugs are coming, because it's thinking, which is better than what it was doing the last time where we just returned empty, but that's because I was in the wrong environment. But now I'm just expecting it to actually return the notifications based on the various scenarios. But I'm sure if this was in the APP 400 system, I would not have had this. But essentially, the next steps is seeing this in my inbox, seeing that your values have been mapped based on what you've selected, selecting submit, or approving or rejecting. And those are your final steps. Yeah, this thing is currently just stuck unloading. I did experience this earlier today where okay, I see what you mean. So someone just suggested that I add the filters and the priority then fixed it. So the due on, this happened to me during certification. This is how you fix it. Beware. All right. No, thank you guys. This is someone with some real world experience. So, so you've taken the certification before. So, okay. So you have some insights as well, which is always good. Do you know the areas that you feel like you might have missed it on? I guess that's why you may be in this session. I took it and passed. That's crazy. That is awesome. Congrats. Yeah, so you should be the one giving this course, as I jokingly say. What would you tell the guys about it? Obviously, not giving away answers, but so, is there a reason that you needed to join this session? Not that I have a problem with it, but were you just looking for more experience in build apps or what? But anyway, there you go, guys. There's someone that has passed it. And yeah, that's always nice to see. Yeah. But yeah, so you see, there's another hint that you can just keep in the back of your mind where you need to filter, because it is important that you see stuff in my inbox. If for whatever reason it doesn't work, naturally you would maybe panic and want to submit a ticket, take screenshots of my inbox not working, because you do need my inbox to come in, because one of the tasks in the certification is whatever comes through. So this is accurate because in this one we did select only process automation. One of the steps that come through is that you need to actually approve or reject. Because if you leave this, what it will do is that in the process itself, it will keep showing it as running. Whereas the certification, I can't find the one that I open my monitoring tab, but for it to not show as running, you do need to approve such that you get that approval. So if I refresh now, I'm expecting an approved message, which is also going to hang. So this is not good behavior. This is not good in terms of because um uh we do want to get this just working immediately without having to filter and stuff like that. Um, Status in progress reserved. Because I did hit approve there, and naturally the next step would be to get that approved notification. Because once you get that approved notification, the user will then just go and submit. Uh, but in the case for when it has auto approved, in the case that it has auto approved, you would just need to submit, and this completes it, so that it doesn't stay as running. Submit. Okay, task completed successfully. And this is what you want to see, so that when you go to monitoring, it doesn't show it as a running process. Okay. Automation 2. This is the process 1. Yeah. So yeah, essentially this is the end. Once you're in my inbox, you are done. Oh, okay. Have you in the background while I work. Okay, that's nice. How did you access to my inbox? Is there a link from lobby? Um. All right. Yeah. At this stage, we can officially open up the Q&A session, because this is everything I wanted to showcase, because now some questions are popping in. So let's go ahead and address them. The Q&A. And yes, let me attach that doc again. Allow you guys to unmute if you'd like to have a brief conversation. Otherwise, if you're comfortable chatting in the chat box, we can carry on like that. Let me share this end-to-end guide. Browse end-to-end guide. That needs me to close it first. What I'll do is I will. Where's that form section? Did I not take a screenshot of my inbox? I didn't. I'll call this 5. Done. My inbox. Slash reject your notification. Go and submit it. And press submit on. And press submit on all of them, so that the process completes. And then I'll add that little troubleshooting. If nothing appears, filter in my inbox. Filter in my inbox. And then I'll just add a screenshot of what that filtering looks like. Then I'll share this document again. So right here, okay, where did that screenshot go now? I was expecting a zip. Okay, but yeah, there's a filter button at the bottom there, where you would need to filter based on status to get everything that is required. If nothing appears, realistically in the environment, it should appear. And which then brings up the next question that was asked. If I get such errors during my certification, will it affect my results? Depending on the nature of the error. If it's a error that is self-imposed, like you went and selected the wrong component, you misconfigured something incorrectly, then yes, it will affect your results. If it's a platform error, meaning it's an error that is based on the environment, it's you are doing everything right and you sure you're doing everything right, take a screenshot and create a SAP case. Take a screenshot of what you tried to do, what you are trying to do, the various ways you try to solve it, and it is still not working. Take a screenshot and create a case. but make sure that you have tried to fix it. Then you create a case. In this type of one where nothing appears here, you see mine is hanging. I assumed it's because it's my trial account, which I still think it is. If I were doing this in the APP system, I should get all my notifications without any issues. But if it does bug out, then you now know, go to the filter section and filter out such that it does then bring up your options. So I think these are my previous. I'm going to reject here. I know why the approved one did not come. It's because for that process, I did select the email address, but yeah, no. I'm not going to bog down with trying to figure out exactly why all of them, because by nature these are all not showing by themselves. Like when I click this, it should just refresh and show you the next process. So filtered out, it should carry on to work for you. So that is what I just added in this last step to say filtered out. Otherwise, if there's issues, if issues, create a case. Take screenshots of error and your attempts to fix it, such that you can support it in the case. And these cases, they do respond. They do take a week or two or a couple of days before they investigate and see whether or not it works. All right. Let me share this document and then we are done. Oopsie. I'm getting Teams messages. Oh yes, I can also put the case, the link to create a case. So you would go to build. But yeah, don't assume that you will get issues, but it's just good to get it. I do see there's more questions. I will address them shortly. Let's go to get support. So in learning.sap.com, I just scroll to the bottom, get support. And in get support, what you need to do is scroll down to create a case. And then it takes you to the case environment where if you've ever had to create cases, you would see a list of all of your cases. So I'll do this. And I'll take this. Then, yeah. Then we are done. Create a case. We're in this doc. I just want to add the link. And I want to add the create a case. Create a case. But realistically speaking, you should not get errors. I know when I first did this, I did get system errors and they did refund me, but that was when it was still brand new. This has been now almost 6 months where this certification has been out. So they've fixed a number of the bugs. Okay, your computer. And end-to-end guide. Share. Alrighty. No, awesome guys. You guys have been a great crowd. And as I mentioned, after this session, you have all of the skills to be able to take on this cert. The session on Thursday will be going through Build Work Zone, a bit of Joule Studio, so you'll be fine. That's not tested in this current version, but it's just nice to know information. Otherwise, if you do need to drop, well done. Thank you so much for your time. See you on Thursday. Let's go ahead and answer some questions. All right. Take care, guys, if you do need to drop. If you don't have any questions, it's okay, but I know the Q&A does help some people as well. Can you please attach the doc again? I did. Someone has a question, number 1. Okay, 1 to 5. Can you explain when to use app variable versus page variable in boot apps? Okay, sure thing. What are the mandatory steps to ensure trigger process works correctly? All right. How does SAP Boot Apps connect to process automation internally? Why is my inbox connect considered the final validation step in workflows? What are common reasons a workflow does not appear in my inbox? All right, okay, a number of questions in there. Let's go ahead and see if I can summarize and ask them and answer them one by one. Can you explain when to use app variable versus page variable? The default is app variable is for the global app. A page variable is for a single page. The default is use a page variable. You would want to use an app variable if you want another page to influence the data in that variable. So it's not common, but you would commonly use page variable. That's question one. What are the mandatory steps to ensure trigger process works correctly? You just need to make sure that it is mapped in terms of how we added it. We mapped it to the process, and that your environment is configured to work in Build apps in terms of the destination. So for your certification, the environment is pre-configured. If it's in a client environment, a BTP environment, you would then just need to make sure that your destinations are there, your credentials are working. Question 3. How does Build apps connect to process automation internally? Well, because they're part of the Build family, the BTP cockpit as well, they are able to recognize each other. And remember, we have that SAP Build library where we publish our process to the library. That is what connects Build apps to recognize process automation, things like that. Number 4, why is my inbox considered the final validation step in workflows? Well, my inbox is where you would go and you action your process tasks. So approve a process, reject a process, view your process. That's why it's considered the final task. What are common reasons a workflow does not appear in my inbox? The recipient, number 1. If the recipient is not correct, you will not see it. It will not come to the right person. And yeah, as we've seen, if the filter is filtering out data, but number 1 is the recipient, number 2 is any filters, and number 3 is if you don't have the necessary destination the necessary role for your user, because there is some important BTP roles that we went through in the first session when we were discussing BTP cockpit, just to make sure that you have all of the necessary roles. All right. Can you show again how to access my inbox? Where is the link to my inbox? Oh, all right. You would find that in the Build lobby. This top right button over here is my inbox. You see if I hover over it, my inbox, it's always there, it doesn't move. And once you click on it, that's when it will take you to the my inbox section. What happens if recipients are not assigned an approval step? Then no one will receive a notification. How does the condition node evaluate multiple Boolean inputs? Well, that is based on the condition itself, and if it needs to meet all the conditions or just one of the conditions. What is the role of started by in a recipient assignment? The started by allows the recipient or the process to pick up the user's email address, because that's a metadata field. The process started by stores the person's current logged in email address, and that is what then allows it to store and send it to that person that actually started the process. How do we debug fraud workflows execution in Build? Monitoring section. Monitoring section will show you if there's any errors. What logs should we check if process runs but task not visible? Once again, the monitoring section. That monitoring section will show you a view of a number of your issues. So here, where I was monitoring processes and workflow instances, this will show you if there's any errors, completed tasks, running tasks, and so on. Otherwise, all right, yeah, that seemed to have answered all of the good questions that we just got over there. Sometimes I know it is nicer to have them typed out, especially when they were listed like this, but I hope you were able to take notes as I was talking. But yeah. That is everything that I wanted to cover, guys. I believe you do have all of the skills, and I know you would do well when you need to take the certification. If you do need to take it again and need to pass it the second time, don't feel bad. It's okay, especially if you're new to this. But you do have all of the necessary skills, and if you take it once, you can keep the question paper. It's gonna be the same question paper when you take it again. Worst case scenario, I always like to do this. You do have my email. Uh, you can email me any issues related to any concerns that you have, and I'll do my best to address. I usually take a day or two to respond. All right. No, it's a pleasure there. Awesome, guys. Thank you. That is it from me as well. Let me give you back the remaining 30 minutes and hope to see you on Thursday. Yes, I sent it in the chat. Thursday is our final session where we're just going to be going through the remaining topics unrelated to the certification, but part of the build, you know, environment. All right, all good, guys. Take care. See you soon. Enjoy your afternoon, evening. Bye. Oh, yes, I see someone just has a general question. Let me see if I can read it. What oxygen, like for this, say people develop, is there any, there is an end-to-end experience given in the layer? Would you reckon, for example, for Fiori, is there an end-to-end scenario? Could you please share if there's one? Oh, sorry, I'd missed that question. Yes, you're right. I haven't seen a Fiori end-to-end type of scenario as well. Um, Thank you for sticking along, and that's why I also waited to just to see if I've missed anything or if anyone still has inputs. But no, I haven't seen a Fiori. I know the which one is it? Fiori recently got made available for the practical sort because previously it wasn't available. So I haven't gone through the learning journey for Fiori, unfortunately. But I know there is a Get certified for that one. So you would just have to look out on your browse live sessions. You should find something. Okay. All right. All good. Have a nice evening. Same to you. Still have a bit of work to do though, but I think I'll be fine. See you Thursday. Bye.